Hi, I'm Paul Edwards. I'm a self published horror author, and first and foremost, a monster kid. Today I'm reading Mad Monsters Magazine, issue number 5 from 1963. I thought some of you might enjoy looking through this great old monster magazine with me. Just in case you don't own your own copy of Mad Monsters Magazine, issue number 5 from 1963. And together, let's see what vintage monster goodness is in here. Already we know that this is going to be a good one because they've got Frankenstein meets the Wolf Man as their cover story. We're also going to get Three Stooges in Orbit, Journey to the Seventh Planet, and Abbott and Costello Meet the Monsters, and all for only 35 cents. Wow. There we go. For your Fiend file, there's Bela Lugosi as Igor and Boris Karloff as the Frankenstein monster in Son of Frankenstein. Nice. This image is the picture most associated with Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. A version of it is painted here on the cover. This was not actually a scene from the film. It was a publicity photograph that they took when they were making the film. And sometimes they would print it this way, and sometimes they would print it this way so that the Wolfman was winning and the Frankenstein monster was leaned way back. But the way that they shot it was this. All right. Mad Monsters brings you Universal's fantasy of horror. Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. This was the 5th Universal Frankenstein movie and the 2nd Universal Wolfman movie. A pairing of the two most monstrous creatures of fiction in an eerie tale of an unholy partnership. Well, they were not partners, at least not when Lawrence Talbot was in Wolfman form. Chills, thrills, and nightmarish suspense merge with the darkness of the supernatural in a story that is beyond the realm of imagination. Wow. Well, it is pretty good. I have to say, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman probably is in my top 5 favorite horror films of the 1940s. And I'm sure it's my favorite Universal film of the 1940s. Favorite Universal monsters. So. If you're familiar with this movie, I've always gotten a kick out of how gigantic Talbot's hospital room is. It's mammoth. It could be an ER ward all by itself. Nice. They really took their time and took a whole bunch of publicity pictures of both Frankenstein and the Wolfman separately and together for their promotion for this movie. You can see a whole lot of them online. If you know your Frankenstein movies, in Ghost of Frankenstein, Frankenstein's young adult daughter was played by Evelyn Ankers with an American accent in Ghost of Frankenstein. And now the next movie in the series, all of a sudden, it's a recast and she's got a European, sort of a generic European accent. Nice. That's a good shot. Look at the Frankenstein monster. Patrick Knowles and Ilona Massey watching in horror as the Frankenstein monster breaks free. Here's that famous image. That's a nice big one too. A kid in 1963 could have scissored that right out of this magazine and hung it on his wall or put it on his school notebook. Coffin Capers. This is one of these bits where they would take a real image from a monster movie and, you know, put a joke caption. Like this one from Attack of the Crab Monsters. The caption is, "Did you order soft-shelled crab, sir?" That's kind of funny. Come on. See, this one is weak. Trick or treat. Yeah, that's not. Yeah. Lon Chaney Sr. in his most terrifying role, the Phantom of the Opera. And this is for your Fiend file. This is a full page. They would call this a mini poster. But you could just cut the whole page out and tape it up on your wall. Because in 1963, where else were you going to get pictures of your favorite monsters? Monster Comics. Nice. Face of Fire. The next 3 pages explode with 3 minutes of macabre movie madness. Well, it's got Cameron Mitchell in it, so that's going to tell you something right away. Whoa. Another mini poster for your Fiend file. Is this, obviously this is taken when they filmed the 1931 movie Dracula. Is this the flower girl when they first show Count Dracula in London and he feasts on that poor flower girl? Is that her? Letters to the Mad Monster editor. Kids would write in and sometimes would send pictures of their makeup that they had done. Check out this kid. That's awesome. This is 1963, so this is right in the heart of the first wave of monster kids. They were all about it, all about monsters. Okay, this is a rarity. This is a Frankenstein movie I have not seen. The Hell of Frankenstein. Probably the reason I have not seen it is that it is a Mexican film, and I have not seen as many of them as I should. I'm all caught up on the Mexican vampire movies, which there were quite a few of, like Monster Demolisher and Invasion of the Vampires and so forth, but I have not seen this. So I'll be as surprised as anyone. Oh, nice. Dr. Frankenstein's menacing monster. Tearing away its steel mask, runs amok in the castle, thirsting for human blood. Wow. Oh. In the Mexican horror films, they did really good with gothic sets like these. If you've ever seen any of the 1960s Mexican vampire films, which there were quite a few of, they were right on the money with their set design. A previous owner of this magazine has taped up this picture here. That's what that is. Nope. Hey, you always got to have angry villagers chasing the monster. Advice to the lovelorn. I'm sure it's real good advice, yeah. Journey to the Seventh Planet. As I often say when I'm reviewing movies for my my podcast where I review old horror movies, perpetual B-movie bad penny, John Agar. Bad penny in the sense that he keeps turning up all the time. Not that he's that bad. But he is. He's a perpetual B-movie bad penny. So, Journey to the Seventh Planet, they arrive, and against all odds, there's a sort of an oasis in the middle of the hostile atmosphere. And things from their own memories start coming true. Like, one guy sees a girl that he knows is there. And, you know, we've seen this same story done on Star Trek and other shows, and it's clear to us now, looking back, that the alien force on the planet is making people see things from their own imaginations. But that was the big mystery in this film. That's not really a spoiler, because if you watched it, you would figure it out in 2 seconds, because we've seen it so often now. Another version of these. Yeah, that's not that good. I always knew I'd get ahead. All right, that's a little funny. For your Fiend file, Henry Hull as a werewolf. That is the Werewolf of London. Werewolf of London, not the American Werewolf in London from like 1981. This is Werewolf of London from, I think it was 1935. That is the movie that gave us a whole bunch of werewolf tropes, like the idea that you became a werewolf from the bite of another werewolf. That was never part of the werewolf legend. That's something that Hollywood invented in this movie, Werewolf of London. All right. My favorite horror comedy film is Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Lou Costello was absolutely against this project. He thought it was a terrible idea. So when they made publicity pictures for it, you'll notice his expression is very lackluster. You know, Abbott is playing along. Costello's like, yeah, take my picture. Because he just was really against it. But it turned out to be probably Abbott and Costello's best movie. And a very memorable one. And I think that all deference to Lou Costello, I think history has proven him wrong, that it did work. It worked big time. Here, this is a good example. I've seen this picture before. You've got Glenn Strange, the current Frankenstein monster. Bela Lugosi back. He last played Dracula in 1931, and they got him back for this in 1948. And Lon Chaney Jr. as the Wolfman. You've got them all together in costume as the monsters. This is a big deal. Bud Abbott is playing along. Lou Costello, no. He's not playing along. Because he just was against it. He was just against the whole project. And in fact, this one was so successful that they made some of these other ones. Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man. Abbott and Costello Meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which they got Boris Karloff to come and play Dr. Jekyll in. Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy. This was getting near the end of their film career. But this one was actually pretty good. My favorite scene in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein is the scene in the Wax Museum where they're unpacking the exhibits that have been shipped and, discovering slowly that it's the actual corpses of the Frankenstein monster and Dracula, and they're not as dead as they would have you believe. And Costello keeps seeing evidence that they're alive, and of course, whenever Abbott looks, everything is normal. Here's something funny for you. I was not allowed to watch The Three Stooges when I was a kid because they were too violent. But this may be a childhood memory for some of you. Whoa. Whoa. Mad Monster Photo Quiz. This is one where they give you a real answer and then some joke alternative answers. Like, obviously, this is from Attack of the Crab Monsters. Which is this from? Attack of the Crab Monsters? Charlie Chomp, Chinese Detective? Claude, C-L-A-W-E-D, Claude Rains Drizzles Again? Or How to Break into Show Business? We're not going to read all of them because they're all that quality of humor. Oh, they actually do have a tricky one here, though. So this image here, okay, is this from Tammy Goes to Charm School, The Amazing Colossal Man, Revenge of the Colossal Beast, or The Cyclops? This could actually be a little tricky because the answer is The Cyclops. But it looks similar to the way that the Amazing Colossal Man looked in his sequel, War of the Colossal Beast, when half of his face was jacked up. So you could be forgiven for being stumped on that one. Oh, another one for your Fiend file. From Half Human. That's an Abominable Snowman picture. $10 Horribles for $1. Monster Fingernails. Horrible full head masks with hair. But these are just drawings of the mask, not photographs of the mask. So I would be careful about that. I'm not sure I would buy that. Dagger with dripping blood stain. Okay, I kind of want the dagger with dripping blood stain now. They have things that you would expect in a horror magazine, like some horror record albums. But then there are also things here that are really not horror. They're just sort of joke shop things, like Trick Cigars. Fake hammer. Okay. Chocolate-covered rubber donut. Oh, that's just mean. Oh, you can get some monster slippers. Or a disguise kit. Yeah. Here you can get 6 weird drawings in the mail. 6 for $1. And they're 8x10s. You get these 6 ghastly glossies. These half and half masks. Oh, phony dentist forceps. Wow. Well, that would go good if you were buying the Amazing talking teeth. Mr. Bones, the talking skull. Spook hand. Wow. I don't know, man. I guess some of these gags are kind of scary. The heartthrob is pretty scary. Giant rubber ears. A phony faucet. Oh, here's another set of 6 8x10s, but this time it's photographs of your favorite monsters. Nice. I love the photo shoot they did with Glenn Strange as the Frankenstein monster, and they were really great with the lighting on this, with creepy shadows coming upwards out of him. There's a whole bunch of photographs like this. You can find them easily enough online. Like if you search Glenn Strange Frankenstein and look under images, you can probably find a whole bunch from this photo shoot. They're very good. Monstrous Comics. Okay, the 60s were a terrible time for horror comics because the industry was self-censoring. But there were giant monster comics in the early 60s. Conga, Reptilicus, and Gorgo. I don't see Gorgo here, but there was, oh, there it is, Gorgo. These were each standalone giant monster movies in the very early 60s. And they each had a series of comics. I believe they were drawn by Jack Kirby. And yeah, Gorgo was such a great movie. Such a great movie. Reptilicus was quite bad. Conga was pretty bad, except Michael Goff was good in it. And but in the comics world, they were all treated about equally. Does anyone remember Titano the Super Ape from the Silver Age Superman comics? Titano the Super Ape would have fit in well in a crossover with, like, not with Conga because he's too similar, but with Reptilicus or Gorgo. That would have been good. 6 snarling werewolves. Whoa. Okay, now I kind of want that. Oh, and that's the back cover. We're done. You can get back copies, though, of Horror Monsters or of Mad Monsters or of this special one-off, Werewolves and Vampires. Look pretty promising. Oops. Oh, but they're 40 cents. Back copies are 40 cents. The current issue is only 35 cents. Listen, if you enjoy vintage horror and classic monsters, you would love my book series, the Mourner's Woods books. My books all take place in a haunted forest in the American Northwest. They're all freestanding stories. One story's got nothing to do with the other. So, you don't have to have read one book in order to understand the next one. I have different monsters and ghouls and goblins in each book. And I have a whole new cast of characters in each book. So you never know who's going to survive to the end of one book because they're not coming back in the next book anyway. So check them out. They're on Amazon.com. 99 cents for an ebook. You can't go wrong. And they're also available in paperback and in audiobook. I tried very hard to keep the vibe and feel of vintage monster movies presented in a contemporary setting, a 21st century setting. But unlike a lot of people who revisit this kind of material, I do not take a ha-ha attitude towards it. I hate that. I do it straight. I do it very straightforward presentation, as if this were a film that you were seeing, in the style of a 1930s or 1940s monster movie, except it's in printed form and it's happening in the present day. So check them out. You can't go wrong for 99 cents for an ebook. My name again is Paul Edwards. My books are the Mourner's Woods books. Thanks for spending some time with me looking through Mad Monsters Magazine, issue number 5 from 1963. I'll see you in Mourner's Woods.